Hi, my name is Nancy Dyson, and this is my husband, Dan Rubenstein. Together, we co authored this book, Railroad of Courage. We wrote it for young people aged 9 to 12, but many adults have told us they've enjoyed reading the story and have learned a great deal of history by doing so. I'd like to read you a few excerpts. My name is Rebecca, and I was born into slavery in the spring of 1842 on a cotton plantation near Rock Hill, South Carolina. When I was 12 years old, I ran away with my ma, Deborah, and my pa, Obadiah. The owner of the plantation, Grower Brown, was a hard man, and all of us slaves were afraid of him. I worked in the kitchen, while my pa and my ma worked in the fields. I have since traveled far from that life. The family meet up with Harriet Tubman, called Moses, and start their escape to freedom. They're poling up a creek and into a river to get away from Grower Brown. We passed from the creek into the river. Through the night, we moved north, upstream. It was hard work, even for a strong man like my pa. I thought to myself, we'll never get upstream by morning. I looked at my pa and saw that his face was glistening with sweat. But as he looked back at me, his lips curled into a smile. He spoke softly. Rebecca, you were right when you said we had to run away. I've been waiting for freedom all my life without knowing it. Later, the family have made their way further along and met other abolitionists. And Rebecca is curious about freedom. I asked, what is the MasonDixon Line? Moses said, north of that line, white folks cannot own, buy, or sell slaves, but south of that line, they can. The line is part of the Compromise of 1850, when the federal government tried to make peace between those in the South who wanted slavery and those in the North who didn't. Mrs. Pickering brought us more water. The heat in the hidden room was rising. Moses said, soon we'll be wishing we had some of this heat to keep us warm. Rebecca, do you know what winter's like in the North? I shook my head. Well, said Moses, let me tell you about winter. The cold is so cold it will make your teeth chatter. There's snow that comes down like cotton falling out of the sky and covers everything, the houses and the roads, the trees and the fields. The streams and rivers, they turn to ice. The ice is as hard as rock, and you can walk straight across a river. Can you imagine that? Moses continued, yes, winter in the north is some cold, but north is where freedom lies. Rebecca is curious about life in Canada and asks Moses, what about Canada? What will it be like to live in Canada? Moses said, I live in a place called St. Catharines. Near my town, there's a big river that divides the United States and Canada. The river goes over a mighty waterfall, Niagara Falls. The roar of that waterfall tells everybody that there's a border there, and that border means everything to Black people. In both countries, there are people who hold Blacks apart, but in Canada, the law says there shall be no slavery. At one time, there was slavery in Canada, and fear and hatred remain. The law can't change that in our lifetime, but the law can protect you so you are never forced back into bondage. We nestled into the fallen leaves on the ground. I lay awake during that chilly night, thinking about freedom. I had been born a slave, and I knew what it meant to be a slave. Now I was a runaway, no longer answering to Grower Brown. What would it be like to be free? What lay ahead?